The wind moved low over the plains that morning, whispering like an old ghost that refused to rest. Two figures stumbled through the brush, young, desperate, half-starved. Clara Hope pressed her arm around her sister's shoulders, guiding her forward. The girl's name was May, barely 17, her eyes red from dust and sleeplessness. They had been running for 2 days. Behind them, somewhere beyond the ridges, rode the man they feared most, Cyrus Vale, a man who wore his cruelty like others wore a coat, comfortably, always ready to use it. They'd seen what he could do back in the mining town of Calder's Bluff. He'd smiled when he said, "You owe me," and the sound of it had chased him ever since. Now their boots were torn, their skin burned, and their hope, that was wearing thin too. When they saw the ranch house, it looked like a mirage rising out of the heat. A small white house, a corral leaning into the wind, a slow-turning windmill groaning with age. Clara almost didn't believe it was real, but the smoke from the chimney said otherwise. They slipped inside the barn, careful, quiet. The smell of hay and sweat was thick. Clara led May into the darkest corner, pressed her hand over her sister's mouth, and whispered, "Don't make a sound." May nodded, trembling. Moments later came the sound of boots on wooden planks. Slow, heavy, closer. The barn door creaked open. A tall man stood framed in the light, hat low, sleeves rolled, a rifle slung over one shoulder. His name was Jonas Redden, a rancher by habit and a soldier by memory. He'd lived alone since the war took more from him than it gave back. He'd expected quiet. Instead, he found two strangers crouched in the dark, eyes wild, like cornered animals. For a second, nobody moved. Clara's breath hitched. She saw the rifle, saw the shadow in his jawline, and her voice cracked when she spoke. "I'll do whatever you say," she whispered. "Just don't hurt her." Jonas froze. He could see the terror written on her face, the kind you don't fake. He lowered the rifle slowly, palms open. "Easy now," he said, voice steady. "Ain't here to harm you." Clara didn't believe him. Not yet. No one had ever helped him without asking for something back. But when he tossed her a canteen and said, "Water's clean. Take it slow," she did, and the water hit her tongue like mercy. Later, after the lights softened and the cicadas screamed in the grass, Jonas leaned on the post by the door. "You could have gone to the sheriff," Clara said. "I could have," he answered, "but I didn't." "Why?" He looked out toward the hills, where the sun burned red and low. "Because whoever's after you don't sound like law." Clara didn't answer. She didn't have to. Read through the above video story script and give me emotional, realistic quality AI images text prompt that best describes a whole script that we'll use to tell the story on YouTube. I need a bright daylight and high catchy images. You must make sure the image align with the story and maintain characters' visual consistency. The next morning came hot and quiet. Jonas was out mending the fence when May coughed herself awake. He offered her bread and jerky, nothing fancy, but it was food. When Clara asked if they could stay the day, he nodded once. "Long as you don't bring trouble to my door," he said. But trouble was already coming. That night, the dog began to bark. Not a lazy bark, but sharp warning. Jonas stepped off the porch, rifle in hand. The moonlight caught the edge of his jaw. Two riders had stopped by the fence line. Clara peered through the window and froze. She knew the shape of that hat, the scar that ran from ear to chin. Cyrus Vale. He sat tall in the saddle, smiling like a snake that had already bitten. He called out, voice smooth as oil, "Redden, you've got something of mine." Jonas raised the rifle halfway. "Don't recall owing you a damn thing." Vale laughed. "Two girls. Pale. Frightened. You've seen them. They belong to me." "They don't belong to anyone," Jonas said. Cyrus shifted his reins, tone darkening. "You hand them over, or you'll regret it." Clara's stomach turned to ice. She wanted to run, but Jonas didn't move an inch. He said it calm and clear. "You step one boot closer, and I'll make sure you don't step another." For a long second, no one spoke. The wind hissed through the sage. Vale's grin faltered. Then he turned his horse with a snap of the reins and spat into the dirt. "This ain't finished." Jonas watched until the riders disappeared into the dark. then lowered the rifle and exhaled slow. "You should have stayed quiet," he muttered. Clara stepped out from behind the door. "And what? Let him take her again?" Jonas looked at her, really looked, at the dirt on her face, the way her hand shook, but her eyes didn't. He nodded once. "Guess it's too late for quiet." That night, no one slept. 3 days passed. The heat pressed down like a hand. Jonas fixed fence posts, watched the horizon, and listened. He knew men like Cyrus Vale. They came back angry, and they always brought more guns. Clara tried to help where she could. She fed the horses, fetched water, kept May inside, but her hands trembled every time she heard a hoofbeat that wasn't Jonas's. One morning, while checking the fence, she saw it, a single hoofprint by the ridge. Deep, fresh, not Jonas's horse. She turned toward the hills, heart pounding. A crow screamed overhead, and the air suddenly felt wrong. By noon, even the wind had gone still. Jonas came out of the barn, wiping sweat from his neck. He saw her face before she said a word. "They're here," he asked. She nodded. He didn't curse, didn't shout, just said, "Grab your sister. Follow me." They ran toward the back ridge, a narrow trail cutting into a box canyon. The rocks that were tall and red, offering cover. Jonas had fought from spots like this before, long ago, when a uniform still fit. He crouched behind a stone and loaded his rifle. "You stay here," he said, "no matter what happens." "You'll die if you go alone," Clara said. He gave a small, tired smile. "Then I'll die standing." She gripped his sleeve. "Why are you doing this?" He met her eyes, steady as stone. "Because someone should have done it for my sister once." "No one did." Before she could answer, the sound came, hooves, shouts, the clatter of metal. 5 riders cut through the canyon dust. The first shot split the air. Then the world exploded. Bullets tore through rock. Dust filled the air. May screamed and Clara pulled her down, covered her head as the echoes bounced like thunder. Jonas fired back, slow, steady, deliberate. Each shot found its mark. 2 men fell. Another turned his horse in panic. But Vale kept coming, crouched low, snarling through the smoke. "You can't keep them forever," he shouted. "They're mine." Jonas rose from behind the stone, eyes cold. "Not anymore." He fired once. The bullet clipped Vale's shoulder, spinning him out of the saddle. He hit the dirt hard, rolled, and scrambled for his gun. Before he could aim, Clara was there, a rock in her hand, fury in her bones. She hurled it with everything she had. It struck the gun, sent it skidding across the dust. Vale froze. Jonas stepped forward, rifle leveled. "This time," he said, "I don't miss." The canyon went silent. Even the wind held its breath. Vale looked up, eyes full of hate and fear. Then he spat blood into the dirt and crawled into the sage, limping toward the horizon. His men followed, leaving behind the smell of gunpowder and defeat. When the dust settled, Jonas lowered the rifle. Clara stood shaking, tears streaking the grime on her face. "You didn't have to kill him," she whispered. "I didn't," Jonas said. "But he knows now he won't come back easy." They stood there until the echoes died and the sky began to fade from red to blue. Somewhere a hawk circled overhead, calling out across the canyon. By morning, the world was quiet again. They walked back to the ranch together, Jonas, Clara, and May. The house looked the same, but something in the air had changed. Jonas washed the dirt from his hands, his knuckles raw. Clara helped May onto the porch, tucking a blanket around her shoulders. "You didn't have to do all that," Clara said softly. Jonas smiled, weary but warm. "Maybe not, but I'm tired of watching good folks get hunted down." They sat in silence as the sun climbed higher. The land smelled of sage and dust and something new, peace. Days turned into weeks. The 3 of them worked the land side by side. May's laughter returned first, soft, like she was testing if the world would let her have it again. Clara's came later. And Jonas, he just listened. One evening, the sky was a river of gold. They sat on the porch as the light faded behind the ridge. Clara spoke quietly. "Do you think it ever gets easier?" Jonas looked out across the field. "No," he said, "but you get stronger. And sometimes you find people worth getting stronger for. Clara turned toward him, eyes soft. For the first time since she'd left Calder's Bluff, she didn't feel like she was running. She looked down at her hands, scarred, calloused. Steady. Maybe he was right. Maybe survival wasn't about escaping. Maybe it was about staying. The wind shifted, gentle now, carrying the scent of rain and earth. A hawk cried high above the canyon, and the sound echoed like a promise. And that's where this story ends. At least for now. Two sisters found peace in a place they never meant to reach. A man found redemption in the faces of strangers. And the plains, they kept their secrets like they always do. So if you're still here, pour yourself another cup of tea. Tell me where you're listening from. And don't forget to subscribe for more tales from the Old West, where justice always rides in late, but it never rides alone.